Hello, welcome to week 4 of our argument unit online. Glad that you're here. This document, or the document assignment and PowerPoint, are available earlier than normal because we don't have school on Memorial Day. So this video tutorial, feel free to fast forward, pause, rewind as needed as I go over the entire lesson. This is intended to simply supplement what I think you should be able to do on your own by just looking at the PowerPoint and the document assignment. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I'll be coming back and forth. You'll see my face every once in a while. I'm going to go ahead and get to it. The first thing I'm going to share with you guys is the actual document for the assignment that you found over in Canvas. This is what it looks like. Remember, this has the little text areas you can tap and click to type right into. But before you get going, really, you want to do a file and you want to save it and save a copy and save it to a safe space that you know where you can find it. All right, so this week, it's the same as the other weeks where we usually have some document where you take notes, try things out. We are looking that you, yes, completed this entire thing. I get that question quite a bit, like, do we really need to do the whole Word document? Yes, it's part of the learning. It's just like if we were in class, these would be split up over several days probably, because we'd work on a little bit and then probably work on some other things as well. Or we do them over the course of this assignment, probably would maybe 2 class periods, if that. I mean, by the time we take attendance and then clean up, you know, we only get like 40 minutes of really good, solid work time. So that's what you can kind of count on for this one. So this week we're going over counterclaims and rebuttals. I will go in detail on the PowerPoint, but I just want to show you the document first. Mine's a little bit different than some of the other teachers, but the same information is there. So we have assignment 1 is looking back at the Red Robin paragraph from last week. If you did not do last week's assignment with that paragraph that you shared online, then you're probably going to have to type an explanation for that or go back and do it. And the Red Robin paragraph is really not my Red Robin paragraph, but it's the paragraph you wrote about your topic. So just to clarify that, if you did not do last week's assignment, then I suggest you go look at the Red Robin paragraph from last week and at least write one for that. All right, so we have a few practices for you guys with identifying claims, counterclaims, and rebuttals. We give you on this one for practice 1 and practice 2, the paragraph that you're going to be able to also see in the PowerPoint, where you have to identify the claim, the counterclaim, and the rebuttal. And all you do is you find it in the paragraph and do a little highlighting. If I think it's this way, if I think that's the main claim, I would copy that and I would paste it right down here. And I can do that. If you don't know how to copy paste, I can select it and then I can either right click and do a copy, or my shortcut key is to hit Control and C at the same time. That will copy it. And then I could paste it here. Now, I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm just showing you how to copy and paste, okay? So you see how I did that? I did a Control V to paste it. If I don't know how to do that and I just know the right clicking thing, I can also do a paste. All right? Okay, so that's how you use these little boxes to click and type in your answers there. I think it's really easy. Some of the other teachers don't know how to use those, so mine has them though. Practice 2 is the same thing. So we give you 2 different paragraphs to practice identifying the claim, counterclaim, and rebuttal. All right, practice 3 is read and identify. So we've actually have a copy of an editorial here. An editorial is an opinion piece found in a newspaper. So read through it. It's about abolishing or getting rid of high school football. And so you can read through it. The things that you're going to do here is you're going to identify 3 different counterclaims and rebuttals, since that's our focus for this week. So you're going to get a 3rd practice, really, which is much more, see how much more text it is? So it's a little bit more challenging. So we're building you guys up on those skills. So we start off really small with having you identify 1 counterclaim from last week's thing, 2 practices with just little paragraphs, which I think you're going to find this stuff really easily. And then finally, a big, huge article. It's not that big. And it's interesting, and find 3 counterclaims and rebuttals. And then 4 is you actually practicing writing counterclaims and rebuttals along with some other things. So I'll talk about this one in the PowerPoint, and I might come back to this screen to share some stuff with you about it. But it has all the documents you'll need to complete that assignment, and you actually type it up right in that little click area. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for just a second. We're gonna go over to the PowerPoint now. So if you just follow along with me here, I'll go through really the whole thing. So let's just get going. So this week is counterclaims and rebuttals, like I said in the intro. This is where this video is going to be linked at, so you're not going to see it right now because I'm recording it, but you'll see it in the PowerPoint. So supplies you need for this week. You are going to need your computer, duh, you're on it right now, right? This PowerPoint, duh, again. The Word document that I just showed you, make sure you have that open, that you're using it with the PowerPoint. You also need your brain. You need to be able to think. You're gonna have to do this work yourself. I can only tell you so much. You also need the ability to argue, to think about argument, and to put forth more ideas than simply just saying what you think. You got to think of the other side. You also need some time. That's the other supply you need. All right, so let's talk business. Nothing is more important than the skill of meaningful argument. Just ask my husband. So what we're about to teach you here in 10th grade is regarding counterclaim and rebuttal that will allow you to win every argument, or at least we hope so. But when we get back to school, if we ever get back to school, just don't use this against us. We may not be able to defeat you. So it's a lifelong skill. I mean, argument is something we deal with all the time. And we learned early on in the week 1 lesson, the argument isn't about fighting or having to be right all the time. It's nice to be right. It's nice to change people's opinions to yours. But it's also about learning new things through argument, that it's getting you to think differently. So our goal this week is to identify counterclaims and rebuttals and integrate them into your own writing. And you do that by reviewing this PowerPoint and completing the document, the assignment for this week. So here's what we're going to be doing. There's several different things, components to it to get you ready for the final write-up, but all of it's part of your assignment this week. So the first thing we're going to do is review our paragraph from last week that was related to the Red Robin prompt. We're going to do an introduction to counterclaims and refutations. We will interchange the term rebuttal and refutation quite a bit. Then we'll do the practice assignments 1 and 2, and then we'll do practice 3, which is the article on abolishing football, and then practice 4, skirmish of the sweeps, which is one of my favorite activities. We usually do it in class, splitting up the class into 2 teams, but with the online environment, we can't really do that. All right. So what you need to do first is open and reread your Red Robin paragraph from last week on evidence and reasoning. And you had that menu of topics. You picked a topic and you wrote the rest of the paragraph. We gave you the main claim. Some of you modified the claim a little bit to fit something you understand or know. You may have changed it from hip hop music to maybe R&B, or you maybe changed it to heavy metal. I don't know, whatever that is. So what you need to do first is look back at that paragraph and read it. Let's go ahead and do that really quickly. Just pause this and go ahead and do it. All right, now that you've had a chance to read that, what I want you to do is think of what is an argument someone could actually use against your claim in this paragraph. What is the one thing they could come back at you with? It could be that they disagree with what you've said directly. It could be maybe, though, that there's something else slightly related that they disagree with. So you want to write that down in your counterclaims and rebuttal Word document. There's a spot for it at the very beginning for this week's assignment. Let's go ahead and pause this, go over there and try to write a counterclaim. Now, writing a counterclaim can be really hard sometimes because sometimes we like our own ideas so much and our own opinions so much, it's very natural for us to really agree with those. It is hard to look at the other side. It's hard to look at the other viewpoint at times. It really takes a mature thinker and writer to do that, but it's an important skill to develop as you enter adulthood. is to be able to have educated conversations with other people and not be offensive, and to think of what other people think from their perspective and to anticipate that. It actually makes you a better arguer. So these are the terms you need to know. It's a little bit of review: claim, counterclaim, and rebuttal. So you need to think of your belief about a topic, issue, event, or idea. That's your main claim. Your counterclaim is a solid and reasonable argument that opposes or disagrees with you. It could be that they disagree with your main claim or your subclaims. Your subclaims are like your reasons to support your big idea. So if I'm going to argue that our school should have school uniforms, and my reason for that is, my subclaim is that it would lower the amount of bullying we have, a counterclaim can actually argue against that idea that it would lower bullying, or it could argue against the main idea about having uniforms in general. It can just be something else they would bring up that is a negative about having school uniforms. So there's lots of things a counterclaim can look like. Just think of it as this is something the other side would bring up as something to support their opposing viewpoint. Or it'd be something directly against something you said that they disagree with, okay? A rebuttal is a written or verbal response to the counterclaim. You have to directly address what the counterclaim says. You can't ignore it and just keep repeating yourself. Because have you ever been in a conversation with somebody and you disagree, and they just keep going back to the same reason they've always been saying? They don't really actually listen to you. That's really frustrating. So you're not really doing a rebuttal if that's all you do is go back and just repeat what you just said. So if I say that we need school uniforms because, you know, it will help prevent bullying, and then someone mentions a counterclaim, or I write a counterclaim that says, oh, well, some people might say that, you know, bullying's going to happen regardless of what someone's wearing, because people aren't just bullied because of the clothes they wear. They're bullied because of their family. They're bullied because of who their friends are. They're bullied because of their body shape. They're bullied because they have too much acne. These are all things that have nothing to do with the clothes that you're wearing. That's a good counterclaim, right? Well, now how am I going to answer back to that? That's the rebuttal. So if I'm going to bring that up, that someone else might think it's not effective, then how am I going to address that? Because I'm like, man, that's a really good idea. People could still pick on others for these other reasons. So what am I going to write for a rebuttal? Well, I have an idea. For rebuttal, couldn't I say something like, even though people could still be picked on for these other reasons, having a uniform would still at least get one of the reasons why kids are picked on in school, and that has to do with the clothing that they wear, which often shows their socioeconomic status of what they have and what they don't have. Okay, see, so that's a rebuttal. Okay, I've actually explained why that still doesn't, why that counterclaim, why that opposing viewpoint still doesn't take away the point I'm trying to make. Okay, so I have to redirect it. And it's kind of tricky, but it's one of the best things you can do in an argument, because it shows you're a thinker. It shows you're thinking of the other side and trying to be fair to them as well. But then you can knock it out, because your reader's probably also thinking those same things. Those counterclaims that you bring up in your paper are probably the very same things that they're thinking as they read it, okay? All right. So here's another example, okay, just to get you thinking. If my claim is that students should be able to have drinks in class, maybe the main claim of the paper is something about the rules in school that we think should be changed or be universal. And so maybe I feel really strongly that students should be able to have drinks in class. The counterclaim to that would be, many people may argue that drinks would be a distraction in class. So I can argue that. The counterclaim may even be followed up with evidence for the other side. It might say something like, you know, for example, kids who have drinks with straws and they slurp on them really loudly in class. Or I could have another example of, you know, like, for example, it's a distraction when kids have to get up in the middle of class to go throw their cup away, okay? Or when they spill it and have to clean it up. So that's the basics of a counterclaim, is just to bring up that other side, but just keep in mind that you can also have evidence that goes with it. All right, claim, counterclaim. So some kids always ask this, why would I want that counter argument or counterclaim in my essay? Doesn't that actually weaken my argument because I'm bringing up the other side and what they think? Well, no, not if you actually respond to the reader's objections. If you actually have a good rebuttal or refutation, it shows how reasonable you are, that you have some ethics to who you are, and that you're not trying to just be biased in one side. It shows that you've looked at both sides, and it shows a maturity. And so it actually makes you more persuasive. The key, though, is you don't just want to put in a counterclaim or counter argument and not comment on it. All right, so the next thing is counterclaims and rebuttals with these transitions. So it's helpful to have transitions to those counterclaims. And you probably noticed it in my examples I gave. These are some helpful ones that you might want to think of. Things like critics argue, opponents assert, many people say, it is often thought, on the other hand. What you're doing by using these phrases is you're indicating to your reader or your listener that these aren't your ideas, that they are counterclaims. They're clues to it. And also when you read arguments, look for these terms when you're reading to find counterclaims. Okay, so the rebuttal, I've talked about it a little bit already, but rebuttal, get it? It's the answer to or refutation of the objections you've presented to your main idea or to your reasons. This is where your textual evidence can come into play, because we will want to use evidence to support it. The rebuttal must outweigh the counterclaims. You must have a rebuttal that's stronger than the idea you mentioned from the other side, and that can be tricky. All right, so here's our example we've been working with. Students should be able to have drinks in class. That's what I'm trying to prove. Now I'm bringing up a counterclaim. Many people may argue that drinks would be a distraction in class. Okay, can we all agree with that? Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I can see that. Okay, so here's my rebuttal. It's in green. I color code things if you haven't figured that out. Notice it's green up here with rebuttals and green down here in the example. All right, drinks in class, though, could actually eliminate more distractions than they would create. For example, students would no longer ask to go to the water fountain, which would cut down on class disruptions. Not only this, but students would be more focused on class and less focused on the next break where they could buy a drink. Okay, so they gave actually two reasons, two rebuttals to this thing, or two examples of that for that rebuttal. So they talked about how it actually is the opposite. It actually creates less distractions, and then they give examples of why that is. It's the disruption of kids getting up to go use the pass to go to the drinking fountain, and then the other one is kids can focus because they don't have to think about running to go get a drink in between classes. It also is helpful to have transitions for our rebuttals. So here are some sentence starters. You may want to take a picture of this or come back to it later when you go to write your own paragraph. So it has the starting point. By the way, these bracketed areas gives you a bunch of different phrases you could insert here. Like on this first one, I could pick one of those. I could say, what this argument overlooks is, and then I continue my sentence. Or I could say, what this argument fails to consider is, what this argument does not take into account is, so that's how you use these bracketed things with these slashes, is you just pick one of them in the middle, okay? And then you do it. So like on the second one, I could say, this view sounds plausible at first, but this view sounds convincing at first, but, okay, see how I do that? All right, so that's important because you might need to use those later. And it also will help you recognize the rebuttals that are happening. All right, so here's your practice. Your practice is that you need to read this paragraph, and then you need to write, or you can copy and paste the counterclaim and rebuttal into your document in the practice 1 section. So remember, in your Word document, it has this paragraph, and it asks you to identify the counterclaim and the rebuttal, and you just can copy and paste them into the appropriate areas. So I'll just read the paragraph, and then you can pause it to go do that activity. All right, so it says, unfortunately, in the 21st century, Americans are still facing issues with racism. Eradicating the ignorance of racism might be made more possible if all high school students were required to take a culture awareness class before graduation. Critics may say that no amount of education can change a person's attitude. However, Having an understanding of differences through study, research, reading, and discussion would provide an avenue for students to put themselves in someone else's shoes. All right, you have 3 sentences there. You need to find the claim, counterclaim, and rebuttal, which are 3 different things. I hope you can figure this one out. So go ahead and pause the video and go figure that out and paste them into the right areas. All right, practice 2. It's another paragraph. Remember, we're starting off small, starting off easy. Same thing. You're going to identify the claim, counterclaim, and rebuttal in your document, and you're going to copy and paste that text. I'll just read the paragraph to help you out. It's all over the news. Kids are spending a lot of time on homework. With the current emphasis on high-stakes testing, educators are trying to do more with less, which can result in an overabundance of schoolwork outside of school. That's not necessarily a negative thing. Some critics say there is no evidence to suggest that homework is helpful to student achievement. On the contrary, homework is necessary and helpful, designed so students can practice the concepts taught in class, build good study habits, and reflect on their own learning. All right, so go ahead and pause the video, go over to your Word document, figure out what is the claim? What are they claiming to be true? What's their main point? What is the counterclaim? What's the thing they bring up from the other side? And then how do they address that? How do they actually push against that idea from the opposition? And then come back when you're done. All right, it's going to get a little bit more complicated on this next practice, practice 3. Read the article in your Word document. It's not here. I'm not going to read this one to you. Read the article about abolishing high school football. You need to identify the counterclaims and rebuttals. It's asking you to find 3 of them, copy them into the space provided into your Word document. So this one might take you a little bit longer, but you can go ahead and pause this video and go ahead and go try that out. And we'll meet back here and move on to the next section. Okay, it's time for my favorite activity. Every year, this is something I do. I'm going to take you to the Word document here in a minute once I'm done talking about the slide. So you're actually going to try writing an argument and using counterclaims and rebuttals in it, but you're going to have to write the other parts too. So for this activity, you're going to look carefully at the birthday party information prompt on the document. Then you're going to write a paragraph in the box provided that includes a clear claim. It needs to answer the essential question of the prompt. 2 subclaims, so you got to have 2 reasons to support it. And then somewhere in there, you've got to have at least 1 counterclaim with a rebuttal. And then I want you some meaningful wrap-up conclusion statement. If you want to make this all one big paragraph, that's fine. You don't need to feel like you need a multi-paragraph essay on this. We're practicing argument, so you could definitely just have one big paragraph that does all of this together. If you would like more than 1 counterclaim and rebuttal, go for it. If you want to write separate paragraphs, go for it. I'm just saying as a minimum, this is what you need to have. Be sure to practice with transitions. Go back to those slides about transitions, and that should help you out. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint for a minute because I'm going to show you the Word document that you guys need to do this. This is fun because it's actually a prompt I wrote and I've used with my students. And normally in class, I split the class in half to argue this, and 1 half takes Skittles and 1 half takes Sour Patch Kids. But you're just going to do it yourself, and I think you'll come up with some good stuff if you think about it. So here's the scenario. I'm giving you a scenario so you have an audience and you have a purpose, and so you can start to make a decision. So here's the scenario. Mrs. Thomas, my son Isaac is turning 8 this year. For his birthday party, I want to surprise him and his friends with some bowls of candy treats. However, I only have enough time and money to deal with providing 1 kind of candy. Plus, I'm really mean and I'm cheap. I don't want to spend a ton of money on it. But I want them to enjoy it, right? Because I worry about allergies, I've narrowed my choices between 2 of Isaac's favorite fruity candies, Skittles and Sour Patch Kids. He loves both of them. When we go to the store, these are the candies he's asking for. So here's what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with cost, likability, like will the kids actually like it? So cost is it affordable? Is it a good price? Which one is a better price? Will they like it? Okay, group of 8-year-old kids. And what about cleanup? What if kids drop them places? What if they have them in their sweaty hands? What if, you know what I mean? Kids are gross sometimes. So what about ease of cleanup? Those are things you need to think of. So I'm your audience. You're trying to convince me of which candy I should pick for his birthday. But you gotta also keep my 8-year-old son happy along with me and his friends. So you have some things in there to think about. So you need to write one paragraph response, like I was saying in the PowerPoint, that answers the essential question, which is what is the best candy for the party out of those two? Is it going to be Skittles or is it going to be Sour Patch Kids? It needs to include a claim. We're actually answering that question, right? That essential question. You need 2 subclaims, so 2 reasons why that's the one to pick. And you need at least 1 counterclaim in there. So you need to address why someone might pick the other one or think that yours isn't that great. And you need a rebuttal to that. And then finally, a wrap up for that meaningful conclusion. Remember, bring us back to the main point of what we're supposed to be picking, right? Okay, you will then click into the Word document to type it up right here, okay? Now, if you're somebody that always needs sentences, I always have some kids that say, how many sentences should this be? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minimum. I mean, I'm guessing on subclaims, you're probably going to have evidence, right? So probably more like 8 sentences, 8 to 12 sentences probably to write this. But I don't think that's that hard. It's not that difficult of a topic. Okay, it's not super controversial. It's not something you should get all upset about, right? But it's a little bit fun. All right, so some things to help you with writing this. Down here, I have pictures I took of the packages of Skittles and Sour Patch Kids. So here's the one for Skittles. It has a list of the nutritional stuff. It also tells you how many servings per container and how big a serving is, how many calories those are. Also has a list of ingredients over here. And that it's like gluten-free and gelatin-free, okay? And it says produced with genetic engineering. Then Sour Patch Kids, here's the labels. It has how many servings per container, how many pieces and grams those are, calories, all the nutritional stuff, has the ingredients, lots of acid, store in a cool, dry place, okay? And then down here, I took pictures of the shelf at the store. So these are for big bags of them. They're not individually wrapped. It's just a big bag of candy that I could dump into a bowl. So this one is for Sour Patch Kids, and you can see the Sour Patch Kids bag up here. These are $5.49 for a package, and then tells you how much that costs per ounce. Skittles are over here, $7.29 a bag, and that comes out to 17.8 cents per ounce. This is a 41-ounce bag. That's a 30.4-ounce bag. So I've given you some details that could help you with writing your argument, especially if you've never eaten either one of them before. Usually in class, I'll be honest, I usually bring some into class so that you can try them out if you've never had Sour Patch Kids or Skittles before, because every year there's somebody that hasn't had them before, which is surprising. But it happens. So even if you haven't had them, there's still some information here that you could use to help you make the decision. You could also ask people, you know, what are they like? If you don't know, Sour Patches are gummy, but they're sour on the outside, sweet on the inside. Skittles have a candy shell and they're chewy on the inside. Not gummy, they're chewy. Once you get past the hard candy shell, okay? The outside of a Sour Patch Kid also has, the sour part also has a little bit of like sugar granules, so it has a powdery covering on the outside. You can kind of see that in the images slightly, that it's a little bit powdery. They both have different flavors. You could think of how many flavors they have or look them up if you would like to. But I hope you can come with a good argument. And the big, huge thing I'm looking for is how did you work in the counterclaim and rebuttal? And where did you put that in with your subclaims and all that evidence? Where did you put that evidence in? And were you really specific? So you're going to type that in here. That's the last assignment for this part of the assignment for this week. This whole document is your assignment. So make sure you've completed all the sections. Make sure your name's at the top. Then you're going to click to save it. And then you're going to go over to Canvas to submit this. I have it open until Sundays for the late ones coming in. But if you want credit for attendance with your assignment, you've got to get it in by Thursday at midnight, because Fridays I have to put in attendance and I go through all of them. Also, if you turn it in late, you may not get as much feedback from me as those who turn them in on time. All right, so that's our assignment for this week. I hope you enjoy it. Get some really good practice with rebuttals and counterclaims, counter arguments. And I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with on Skirmish of the Sweets, because I don't know, which one should I pick? Should it be Skittles? Should it be Sour Patch Kids? As always, if you have more questions after watching this and the other materials, please let me know. And I'm more than willing to answer those, as long as you've tried with due diligence to access the information yourself. So see you around, guys. Bye.